I want to thank our proud sponsor, BetUS, been powering us all season long. Check them out, betus.com, and we will see you later. Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to High Top Sports Oregon. Yes, we're back. The Duck is back after a small hiatus. Getting busy, like always. We are going to jump into this Ducks recruiting class of 2026. If you've been keeping up with the channel, I have done a film review on almost everybody except for Xavier. That will be coming later this week. I know you guys have been enjoying those, but we're gonna kind of deep dive in this, and then the Ducks got a question about quarterback, not knowing what that's gonna look like. But let's go ahead and get into it. Derek, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been a long hiatus. I'm glad to be back on the High Top channel and, getting things rolling again as we kind of head into spring ball here.
Yeah, we're not gonna knock him for it. Life does happen. So we'll give him that. So to me, Friday night fish fries, I think that Derek's been enjoying, or it could just be work.
Well, I mean, you can blame it on work. The Wisconsin Old Fashions, they might have had something to do with it last night, but, we made it on the show. That's what's important.
Yep, for sure. So yesterday I was live at the combine. We did do a little bit of video about that with some footage I personally took uh, from the combine. Good day for Jordan James. I think we expected that from him. I think he's going to be kind of probably Bucky Irving 2.0. Oregon is not going to be slept on anymore in the running back room. I can tell you that after what Bucky Irving has done in the NFL this year. But some guys that struggled. DG struggled a little bit. We talked about that. But a guy that throws with timing and anticipation is going to struggle with that. The no drops for Trayshawn Holden, no drops for Tez Johnson. Both ran strong 40s. I think Tez probably didn't run as fast as what he probably should have. I think he might still be healing up from some nagging stuff from the postseason, but it's one of those things. He's going to be a weapon. We know there's plenty of film and GPS tracking on those kids. They know what Tez can do.
Oh, 100%. It's like I think a lot of people put stock into the NFL Combine for obvious reasons. I mean, it's kind of really your chance to show off in front of a lot of these scouts and such, what you're capable of and kind of what your athletics look like. So, obviously people are going to put a lot of stock into that. And I know Tez in particular, he weighed in at 154, ran just over a 4.5 yesterday, which, neither of those are going to stand out on paper. Obviously, 154 in the NFL, that's light. You're looking at guys like Tank Dell, who has very similar measurables. And obviously, he's able to succeed in the NFL too. But I know there are a lot of people who were looking for Taz to kind of run that sub 4.34, and obviously that didn't come close to happening. So then, naturally people get a little hesitant on it. But kind of like you said, there's a difference between what you're able to put out on film in gameplay in live action, as opposed to what you're able to do in the NFL scouting combine. We've seen plenty of players before that light the world on fire at the combine, and then they're just kind of never heard from again. And, vice versa, we've seen it happen the other day where players have poor combine performances, which I think, Bucky Irving is a very, very apt one here where he tested out very poor last year. I believe that was his final scouting combine grade. It was very poor. And then we know what he was able to do in the NFL. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt, just as kind of how much you weigh into the NFL scouting combine. Obviously, we would have liked to see some of these guys perform a little bit better. The DGs, Tez Johnson, obviously, we wanted to see have a strong performance just due to his size, especially. That didn't necessarily happen. But like I said, you can only put so much weight into what you're able to show in this one day, 2 days of the NFL combine.
For sure. Yeah. And before we wrap it up there, I think the combine is still a good thing for some kids that are went to some bad programs, or not well televised programs that a lot of scouts didn't get to see. But I know a lot of them are going off the GPS of what they're getting with the next gen stats. The Minnesota Vikings, I know, it's big into that over the combine stuff. So it's one of those things. 154 with Tez Johnson's weight. You gotta also remember. I think Devontae Smith. They said the same thing about him, right? Being too light, and he's been fine at the Eagles. So, but yeah, Jordan James, best. I think he improved his stock, hit pay dirt. over all the Ducks that have been there on the offensive side of the ball. I know there's been a couple others on the defensive side of the ball, Harmon being one of them. I know he juiced his stock way up. And then for a Florida guy like me, Cam Jackson, another defensive tackle that juiced his stock way up from the NFL Combine. So I was just there for the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. That's the biggest day. Everybody wants to see the quarterbacks. So, but yeah, it was good. Let's go ahead. Let's break down this 2026 class. I want to thank our proud sponsor, BetUS, as always. They've been sponsoring us all season long. So thank you to them. But let's go ahead and get into this class. Kodi Greene, big offensive tackle, 4-star, 5-star on some of the recruiting sites. Out of California, modern day, the powerhouse. You know everything's going to be right with him. The grades, the weightlifting, the attitude. They just develop one player after another, it seems like. And getting a couple out of modern day, actually, as I'm seeing down this list, like every year, it seems like.
Yeah, it's important for a program like Oregon to kind of, establish and maintain that Southern California pipeline, especially to a program like Mater Dei, who's consistently in the top, 3-5 programs in the entire country at the highest level. Kodi Greene is obviously he's no exception. He transferred into Mater Dei, and he's been lighting the world on fire there. He's done exactly what everybody had anticipated him to do. Like you said, he is a 4 to 5-star, depending on where you look. I do have a feeling before all is said and done, he will be a composite 5-star, just, how he continues to grade out by all the programs. And he's one who Oregon should feel fairly good about. He's stuck with the Ducks, been very vocal about his commitment to Oregon. I'd say the one program kind of to watch right now on him is Texas. He did
Yep.
schedule his official visit to Texas, which, we've said this last year. We're going to continue that year after year. When you get a guy that is highly touted as Kodi Greene at a premium position like offensive tackle, they're going to be taking these visits. These programs are going to be coming calling, and the recruitment, like we've seen in every cycle that you've ever paid attention to in college football recruiting, none of these things are over until they're over, until the pen hits the paper.
Mm-hmm.
But where we sit right now, I feel really confident with Kodi Greene. Even with his communication with the University of Texas, he continues to be vocal for Oregon and kind of where he stands there. So I feel really good about him, and he'd be someone I'd be very excited to see, on that final recruitment rankings at the end of the year.
For sure. And this is one thing I'm gonna say. Not every tackle in high school is a tackle at the next level. All right. And it happens to the NFL too. Not every tackle at the college level is a tackle at the NFL. This kid's a tackle at the high school level, and he's a tackle at the college level, and that's something big.
Yeah, and it's rare, especially at that position, to have someone who is a true freshman would be next year, obviously coming into a program where you could immediately compete for a starting position. And that's exactly what you see out of Kodi Greene. I'm not saying he's someone who's going to come in right away and start day one, just because there is so much left to be seen with him, with his senior year and kind of how recruitment ends up playing out. But he is definitely someone who is going to factor into the conversation next spring, when we're talking about starting lineups and such. He's one of those generational type kids, and someone I think Oregon is fighting tooth and nail to hold on to till the very end.
Oh, for sure. All right, let's go ahead and go to the athlete. This kid can kind of do it all. I don't know what his true position is going to be when he gets to the University of Oregon. I know that that's usually a big factor for these kids of what position they'll get to play when they're marked as athlete. Marked as a tight end here also. He plays tight end a lot. He also plays the defensive side of the ball quite a bit. I think that's his more natural position is on the offense. 6'7", 243. Again, a 5-star on the 247 composite, 4-star on the 247 sports. So the composite is a group of rankings from all of the all the big ones on 3 and such. So a true 5-star. 6'7", 243, giant wingspan, catches the ball extremely well, can block. He's just a man amongst boys. Out of Reidsville, North Carolina. What are we thinking about this young man?
Yeah, Kendre Harrison. He's someone who Dan and the Ducks have been prioritizing for a couple cycles now, and for obvious reason. One of the top tight ends in this year's cycle. there is a bit of versatility there. Like you said, he does play defensive side of the ball in high school. The way Oregon's kind of recruiting him, and it sounds like they plan on using him, it would be at a true tight end position. Um, and also has the ability to play a little bit of wide receiver in high school, which I mean, that's not necessarily going to be the case at the University of Oregon. However, it does show, the athleticism that this man plays. And I know another factor that goes into his recruitment is a basketball player too, right? So he's a dual scholarship guy. So wherever he goes, he'll be playing basketball at their program. Dana Altman and the Ducks. I think that played a factor into it too. But yeah, he's someone who his recruitment is going to continue to ramp up over the summer. I know programs like North Carolina are getting into contact with him for obvious reasons, just being the hometown kid, the University of Georgia, just some of these other programs who are trying really hard to get him onto campus for an official visit. Has been very vocal about his commitment with the Ducks, and continues to sound very solid. But once again, when you have someone at this premium position, especially tight end, that's one of those positions where it's really, really hard to find a true difference maker, especially at the high school level coming into the collegiate level right away. And Kendre Harrison is someone who can do that with his physical build. I mean, he projects to play almost immediately. And I hope that is the case. Just Oregon is in desperate need of a tight end in this year's cycle, and to hold on to someone as highly touted as him would be massive. Last year they were able to grab a tight end, but they haven't quite been able to, take that next step in terms of, the recruit coming in at that position. And I think Kendre Harrison absolutely fits that bill. He's somewhat, arguably the player I'm most excited to have in this class currently.
Yeah, he reminds me of a young Kyle Pitts. If you kind of go watch the Kyle Pitts huddle, when he was a young high schooler, that's what reminds me of. Um, so I mean that's a pretty big comp, right? We saw what he did his junior and senior year at the University of Florida, kind of a household name. Struggled in the NFL a little bit, but it takes a while for those guys to get to get going in the NFL. Usually, it's a funny joke in the NFL is you draft a tight end for the next guy for the next team because it just takes so long to develop. It's a big position to develop. I'm gonna say this though, with this young man, uh, it's a lot easier to go find you a 2 or 3 star blocking tight end that can catch a ball or two. This guy's a true move tight end. So you think of guys like Kyle Pitts. Alabama had a good one. I can't remember his name. It came out a couple years ago. But those move tight ends are absolutely explosive. And they are a red zone threat. At 6'7", just throw the ball up at the back of the pylon, and he's going to reach up and grab it. And I think that's where he needs to lay home is that move tight end position. And those guys can go in the first round. If you're explosive, those guys are very, very hard to come by, and he can block. He's a pretty good blocker already for being a young guy. He actually had blocking stuff on his highlight film, which I enjoy. But let's go ahead. Let's get to the featured ball carrier here in Tradarian Ball. Out of Texas, that you go in and dip and yank a very, very good one. I mean, he's a number 2 running back in the nation, coming out of Texas, and all the Texas schools, all 35 of them wanted him, but he decides, Oregon. Oregon is it.
Yeah, that was a big one for the Ducks. Someone, once again, they have been prioritizing for a few cycles now at that running back position. And going into the state of Texas, where Oregon, they've been recruiting fairly well out of the state of Texas recently. We think of Decory and Moore, and Tradarian Ball, from a very similar area to LaMichael James was, who Duck fans are very familiar with. But this is a very, very explosive playmaker who really can do it all. Once again, he kind of reminds me of like a Kenyon Barner-esque type of player where he can be a true receiving threat, carries the ball extremely well. Not the biggest running back that you're going to find in this year's cycle, but he runs with absolute authority, does not shy away from contact. Definitely not one of those type of players who's going to, just bounces the ball outside immediately and tries to dance around the entire time. Like, the man can do it all. He's able to bounce to the perimeter and make, men miss in space, but he's also able to run between the tackles, which, in the state of Texas, if you're getting one who's able to succeed down there at the highest levels of high school football competition, obviously those are the guys that you're going to want to prioritize in your cycle, and that's what Dan Lanning and the Ducks have done. And Tradarian, I think at this point in the 26 cycle, he's arguably one of the ones I'm most confident that Oregon's able to hold on to, just because they have been prioritizing him for so long. And he has been extremely vocal about, Oregon being able to hold down his commitment. I know there was a little bit of smoke with him to Texas A&M and Texas. He shut that down immediately on social media. Now, mind you, these are high school kids. What's said on social media isn't meant to be
Yeah.
gospel. I wouldn't be absolutely shocked at all if all of a sudden we see one day, he's on an official visit to Texas. That's just kind of the nature of the beast with these premium guys. But someone I know, Dan and the Ducks are extremely happy to have in this year's cycle, and I think he's going to be one of those ones where they're white knuckling it, trying to hold on to him, as we approach the end of the year.
Yeah, kid that can be a feature back right away. A true freshman that can definitely make some waves in that running back room, and got some good ones in the 25 class. Got some guys coming back. But you can't pass up or not get a guy like this. This guy is going to be a household name. He's got everything you want in a running back. Catches the ball extremely well out of the backfield. You got to be able to do that these days, especially in that Wilstein offense. And then another thing is like you said, he's not at high school you see, I call it immaturity in running style, where they constantly try to bounce out, bounce out, bounce out. They have done that because in little league, that sweep to the left, sweep to the right, they've hit pay dirt so many times because they're faster than everybody. This kid runs
Hmm.
between the tackles. We saw Jordan James had to change his running style. It started clicking about midway through the year, where he was actually starting to hit pay dirt through the tackles, between the tackles, and it paid off for him. Again, that's maturity. That's especially in the Big Ten. You're not going to outrun everybody bouncing to the outside. The defensive linemen are too good. They see it coming a mile away, and the linebackers are too fast. So that's not going to happen. But this kid runs between the tackles. He seems to me like a running back that is already a sophomore in college with his running style. You see, here he is on the goal line. Falling forward is a big thing. He's always falling forward. The feet never stop moving. He can catch the ball. He's years wiser in the running back position than what most are as a 2026 kid. Now he's
Yeah,
17 years old.
right. And one of the things I really enjoy about him too is he can also block a little bit.
Yep.
Once again, we talked about his size here. Not the biggest back in the world, but does an exceptional job on tape of like being able to pick up blitzers and kind of hang with those linebackers that are crashing or chipping the edge or whatever the case is. He also does that extremely well. So the reason he's rated so highly in this year's cycle is because he's able to do all these things. It's rare to find a high school back who's able to catch the ball to the backfield and run between the tackles and kind of have that speed and athleticism to take it outside, as well as pick up a block, which we all know in an Oregon offense, if you're not able to block in the backfield, you're not going to play. That's something Jordan James was able to do exceptionally well. Bucky Irving wasn't known as a blocking back coming in, ended up being a phenomenal blocker out of the backfield. And I think that's kind of the trajectory that Tradarian Ball sees that he's going to need to follow if he's going to be successful in an offense like that.
Let's go ahead. Let's check out. We got to do a little bit of gambling. BetUS right now. Check out betus.com. Use the code YouTube150. You get 150% back on your first deposit, 125 on your second and third deposit, up to $2,000. Let's go ahead, check out a little bit of college baseball. Have you been watching any college baseball at all?
I have, yeah. I've watched quite a few Oregon games this year already. I watched them actually just put up 35 on Columbia yesterday.
Jesus.
Yeah, they put up 35 runs. I think it was like 18-1 in the fourth inning or something like that. Yeah, them boys they brought the sticks yesterday.
Let's go
But
ahead. Let's go ahead talk about Florida's baby brother, Miami. You know, just absolutely dominate them in the series. We need one more to just go ahead and push them off the abyss. I think Florida gets it done. I'm gonna stay away from the 2.5. These games are weird. It all comes to pitching. we used our best pitcher on Friday night. Saturday, we used our second best pitcher. So I don't know about depth wise what you're bringing in, and then what Miami's going to bring in. But Florida's been absolutely blazing on the bat. Not 35, but 6, 8, 10, 12 a game. Been blazing on the bats. They are a undefeated team still left. There's like 6 or 7 of them. Go ahead, give me Florida money line one time.
Yeah, I like it. I would also go Florida money line. To your credit today, I would take Miami plus 2.5.
Because of
College
the
baseball,
pitching.
like you say, because of the pitching, college baseball is it's so different than the MLB in terms of kind of how you approach betting and what these games really look like. And when you have that pitching, you're able to coast all season long. We used to see it with Vanderbilt in the early 2010s.
Yep.
In the 2000s, we saw it with Oregon State. Right now, Florida has an elite pitching staff. They have a deep bullpen. Um, I do think the Gators get it done today. Their offense is one of the elite offenses in college baseball right now. In Miami's, they're not leaning on their pitching. For obvious reasons, it's not necessarily one of their strengths. So I think Florida does get it done. I think they put enough runs on the board. Being a rivalry series, I think obviously Miami, they're going to want to scratch one out of here. They're not going to want to get swept. I don't think they quite have enough in the tank to pull out a dub today, but I could see this one being a close one. So I'd go Gators money line and Miami plus 2.5.
Yeah, and they may have saved their best pitcher. Also, that's another thing is what some coaches do. They'll say, yeah, you can burn us in the first half, and we'll catch up on those last couple games. But going to be a great game today. At 1 o'clock at Florida, great ballpark. They just revamped that thing, and it's a beaut. It's a fan favorite for sure, for sure. And then another thing about Ball that I really enjoy is that he does have that home run hitting capability. I saw in his films where guys with great angles just they couldn't catch him. So yeah, he's a perfect back when you're looking 5'10", 175, low to the ground. He's gonna if you're in that Oregon running back room, watch out when he comes into play, and I'm sure he's gonna be an enrollee. That thing just keeps getting earlier and earlier and earlier. So we will be seeing him
Mm.
during the spring game pretty soon.
Yeah, that's the hope. He's one I really, really hope Oregon's able to, maintain the commitment all the way through to National Signing Day. Um, just letting things are gonna get hairy with all these guys. They may be committed and they may be saying all the right things, but I hate to tell you, at the end of the day, we're gonna see a lot of these guys take visits, and I don't think Tradarian Ball is gonna be an exception to that.
For sure. Let's go ahead and go to the defensive side of the ball. We got Mr. Bott, and I really love this kid. I don't know what kind of competition he's playing at Utah, but I mean, you can't teach 6'4", 275 as a 17-year-old, right? And so when he gets into that Oregon strength and conditioning program, I would say he's going to be up about 295. But he's going to play interior defensive lineman, highly touted, 41st ranked nationally, just on the edge. If he was an edge player, he would be a 5-star. But because he plays an interior defensive line, he's a 4-star.
Yeah, and that's fine. He is absolutely one of the elite prospects in terms of the interior defensive line in this 26 class. Oregon was very fortunate to be able to secure his commitment. Another one where, because it's such a premium position, you don't find a lot of interior defensive linemen coming right out of high school that are ready to come in and compete. And once again, if he's able to stay healthy his senior season this year and he ends up signing with the Ducks, that is absolutely going to be the case next spring. Um, and we know how important the defensive line is in a league like the Big Ten, right? We were
Yep.
able to see it this year. One of the reasons Oregon was so able to be so successful in the Big Ten this year was because of their defensive line between Mateo on the edge, having your Jamari Caldwells and your Derek Harmons up the middle, who, both of those guys have absolutely skyrocketed their draft stock since they've been an Oregon Duck.
Yep.
Um, and I think Bott's going to be someone who, if they're able to hold on, is able to make some waves. He is an extremely big player. He plays very physical. As we know, the state of Utah, they're not necessarily a hotbed for, big name quarterbacks and running backs, but I should say, position groups that they really churn out pretty frequently are the defensive line and the offensive line. Um, Tons of talent out of there. Oregon, they were able to get, you think to the offensive side of the ball, you think Jackson Powers Johnson, who another Utah kid. Oregon has taken a number of Polynesian kids out of the state. So it's a state that Oregon has a pipeline through for the last, 10 years or so, and it continues to maintain itself this year with Bott. Um, Gonna be someone who he's gonna get on campus somewhere. I know Utah is obviously pushing to get him on campus. USC is pushing to get him on campus. BYU is pushing to get him on campus. Um, whether he decides to take those visits, that's one thing. But for now, he's secured with the Ducks, and someone I think Oregon fans, it's not a sexy position, that interior defensive line, but I think it's one of those where if you're able to get someone who's elite at that position group, you set yourself up for massive success in this year's recruiting cycle.
Yep, I have to agree. Right now, you see his sophomore film. He is playing edge, kind of on the little screen down here below us. And what I love about that, he's not going to be an edge player at Oregon after he gains that weight. What I love about that is it's always nice to have a guy that pass rushes like a edge player on the inside. If you can get that big, he's got a powerful first step and he is an elite hand fighter. You get that up the middle instead of coming around the edge like that, and that is a quarterback's worst nightmare. They cannot stand pressure right in their lap. That makes them uncomfortable. Around the edge stuff, they can step up and manipulate the pocket. The best quarterbacks can. In their lap, they're falling backwards. There's nothing they can do.
Mm. Yeah, and something that I really enjoy about his film, when he is on the interior, like you said, he kind of plays more like an edge rusher in terms of the moves he used to get on the inside. A lot of times, especially in high school on film, you see, these interior defensive linemen, they're very down pat on the bull rush, where they're coming straight at your face because of a
Yep.
lot of these kids, they're bigger and stronger than the kids across from them. They're not playing all D1 competition, and that's just not going to fly, especially in a league like the Big Ten,
Yeah.
where everybody says you're not going to win just purely based on strength. So to have somebody who comes in with a little bit of experience and the know-how to have a tool belt of different moves they use to create that pressure, that's pretty big. We do see it fairly frequently where people slide in from the edge, as they put on their natural weight or kind of approach their natural size. They fit more as an interior defensive lineman. And I think that works out, that pays dividends just because they do have such an arsenal of moves they're able to use. They're not one dimensional. And typically, they come with a degree more of athleticism than people who've played true defensive tackle their entire life.
Yeah. I have to agree. You see a lot of that. A lot of these nose guards that have been nose guards their entire life because they're big. They just bull rush everybody. They're not good at hand
Mhm.
fighting. They're not good at they're not agile. They just kind of have been able to bully their way all the way through to the defensive, till the top echelon of the NCAA, and sometimes they even get away with it after that. But when you get into the big boy league, you are not pushing anybody around like that, just off pure strength. And
Mhm.
bull rush is a very effective move, but
Mhm.
what I loved about Bott's film is I only saw one bull rush the entire time during his entire film. But he's very very good at hand fighting, and he bends the edge extremely well at 6'4", 275 pounds, coming around like a true edge rusher. He's going to be a force in the next couple of years. He will be a household name. So I want to thank our proud sponsor BetUS, been powering us all season long. Check them out, betus.com, and we will see you later.